1 minute late, but we're really excited to have everyone here. This is the Cities for All meeting. This is a follow-up to the Secretary General's visit to Mathare slum in Nairobi, Kenya for International Women's Day. What we have here is an outstanding panel that's going to look both at the higher level kind of what we're talking about, specifically looking at women's issues, public space, which is super critical to the health and well-being and livelihoods of young people, and then both looking at that from the high and linking it to the SDGs, the New Urban Agenda, but also looking at some of the research we've done locally on Mathare slums through with the University of Oslo, as well as some personal experiences by one of our people who live in one of the slums in Nairobi. So we're going to have a whole gamut of stuff. What we thought we'd do first is that one of the best ways, I think, of putting something forward is to show you the actual reality. We have a really excellent video that was produced by the youth group that we work with in Mathare, the Mathare Environmental Conservation Youth Group. So I thought I'd show that first, just to give a flavor and a context to what we're working in, and then we'll move into the speakers. And I'll introduce people at that time. Great.
Mathare is one of the oldest informal settlements in Nairobi, Kenya's capital. This slum is home to hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children, each struggling to earn a living. Lack of social amenities, public spaces, coupled with a history of crime and endemic poverty, makes Mathare a unique community. Regardless of the hardships, the youth have come up with innovative ways of bringing positive change. One such group is Mathare Environmental Conservation Youth Group.
My name is Isaac Mwasa, but I am known as Kaka, Akame's brother. For me, I'm a community leader, and I really support the young people. For me, I like supporting young people who are innovative and who are coming up with ideas to support other young people in building the nation. As the young people, we are looking for opportunities to see how we can change the community and create employment amongst the young people. Talking about the challenges that the community was facing in 1997 to 2000, I can say that there was garbage everywhere, there was diseases, sometimes even you find aborted babies who have been thrown there. So it was a big challenge to us. So mostly we did with waste management. When we were collecting the garbage, we realized there is some recyclable materials that you can try and recycle. We have a machine that adds value also to the product. But in this business, the big challenge is when we take the garbage to the collection point, like we found there's no trucks for carrying it, like the city council, they're not reliable. If they can be a bit reliable, like life can be smooth, and also we can continue creating more opportunities for the young people. The open spaces turn out to be very resourceful to the society, because now we have a center that is being occupied every day by young people. We also had some support from the politicians, because we knew that whenever there's elections, the politicians will come running asking for votes. If we vote for you, all we want for you to do is just remove the garbage. So that way, we got rid of the garbage. that has also engaged the community, because when we are doing it, like some of the community members, they come help so that we secure the spaces. The open spaces, they are social places where now not even the young people, as the community, we can use when we want to have events that will make you know your neighbor and also make you feel that you belong to this community. So by occupying the open spaces, like, and utilizing them and creating space for the kids and also the youth to come up together is the best that Madara Environmental is doing so far. When the young people fight for open spaces, they are fighting for a developing community. Because in life, if you lack some of the space that you need so that you can grow up when you are a young person, like, it's very difficult. Even in our own group, like, we had lost some members. They were engaging in crime and we lost them on the way. And it's very sad, like, when you see a young person die at a younger age. As for now, I can say the situation now is much better, and a lot of young people are now engaging in other activities that are happening in the community. And with that one, you can see the unity and the togetherness that this community is now facing. We have tried to engage the young people and trying to bring them together so that they can come up with ideas that will build a better community. We just need to support the young people. With that one, we can live a better life. And that's what everyone wants. A better city, a better life. One love.
And just quickly, we have a 1-minute clip just of the Secretary General's visit that we've got.
Do you have it laying here in
It
the
should be,
background?
yes, right in the background of this. Look, right, look, there, there. Thank you. So as you saw, as you've seen, Mathare is a wonderful community. Unfortunately, Isaac Musa, who was on there, we invited him, but he wasn't able to get a visa. But we have Linus here who will be speaking on behalf of youth in Kibera, which is another major slum. If you've been reading any of the news lately around the elections and what's happened, the two places you hear, three places you hear Nairobi, you hear Kibera, and you hear Mathare. These are the hot spots, but these are young people here who have moved forward, bringing peace and such, and you've seen the first video, you really saw how the complexity of what's going on. I mean, it's not just public space, it's not just livelihoods, it's not just young women, it's not just young men, it's a whole coming together and trying to build a community, and I think that's what we're here to talk about, is how we can make that weave work. So one of the people who is the most strident promoters of public space that I've ever met is my executive director, Dr. Jean Close. He's moved it through a whole process around Habitat 3, which is our third triennial, I guess, or I don't know how we call it, major conference, and we came out with a new urban agenda, which very strongly said public space is centered to what we're doing. It's also mentioned very strongly in this SDG, SDG 11. So I'd like to introduce Executive Director Jean Close.
Thank you very much, Rana. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's an honor to be with my colleague from the UN Women, also the representative from the Huayru Commission, our research colleagues from the University of Oslo, the representative from Zimbabwe, and also my adopted home city of Nairobi, today represented here by Linus, who lives in Kibera. I think that it's, as you have mentioned, in the new urban agenda and in the new paradigm shift that we are advocating for improving urbanization, we are trying to convince decision makers that public space is crucial in the urban areas. And you have seen here the images, and you have seen the scarcity of the public space. Even Mathare is a very peculiar place because it's a mixture of horizontal slum and with a vertical part of vertical slum. Kibera is more horizontal, but Mathare it has this peculiarity of being both part horizontal and part vertical. And what is really extremely very painful is to see how few public spaces are and how difficult it is for us to get the public spaces. In that case, is this place that we were with the Secretary General that now has been used mainly as a football place, but also a community space and the real forum for the community, because it's the only public space. Then everything that is communal tends to happen there, or in the youth center, or in some very scarce other places. The reason why there's no public space, there are many. But probably the most important one is that in order to have public space, you need to have a strong community. Because somebody needs to defend, somebody needs to advocate, somebody needs to protect the public space. The public space is not given by the structure owners. The structure owners, they want to use the land to build structures and then to rent them. But they don't really feel, prone to provide public space. And this is one of the biggest challenges of improving the quality of these settlements. And this public space, as you have seen, is so important. And it's so important for the youth and the young and the women. Because, this is the second part of the question, that these groups of the population are the ones that they take more advantage of the public space, The ones the men that go to work, or the people that can go to work, and they move, they go out and they come back, but during the night. But the ones that stay there, the ones who sustain the community, are the ones who require more this public space. Then public space, it's a kind of, it's clearly a public good, but as a public good, it should be protected by the community. Hopefully, it should be protected by the state, but if the state doesn't reach the small capillarity of the communities, then it's the community itself that it's obliged or forced to do so. And in this case, it was possible through this recycling of the garbage space, which in itself is already an explanation of how difficult everything is. And when you see then the public space, you immediately see the huge advantages, the huge productivity, social productivity of public space. In the case of Quibera, we were building in a street, and it took 2 years to convince even the structure owners and to accept that the width of the street was going to be 12 meters, because at the beginning they only accepted 8 meters. But 8 meters, it's a very poor width when you you have such a huge concentration of people like in Quibera. And I've been in Madare quite a number of times in my private condition as a citizen, helping in NGOs, etc. But also in my public conditions with Rebecca Greenspan of UNDP, and as you have seen with the Secretary General. And it was very emotional to see how people was happy and reacting positively to this provision of a space. Then I would like to commend the support of all of you, this coalition that you have gathered here, coming from the Oslo University, coming from UN Habitat, youth, coming with the community itself, coming from UN Women, and all the different NGOs that are helping us in doing different programs there in situ. I think that this is a very pragmatic way, this is a very efficient way to go on in this fight for a better life, a better cities, and a better prosperity for all. Yesterday in his speech, the Secretary General mentioned with a strong passion the figures of youth population in the world, which are very important, very relevant. But apart from that, people of I think that the people of less than 25 years represent 30% of the total population. But apart from that, most of them are urban, and most of them are in poor urban areas. Then here is where we have our big challenge. And I commend also then, and I thank the Secretary General for focusing, first for coming to Madare to visit and to share with us the experience there, and then to focus his ideas on these objectives, because that gives us energy to continue in our efforts to spread this knowledge, this information, and also to help the decision makers understand that urbanization is a very serious question, that urbanization can be improved, that the only that it requires is political commitment, etc. And it's not very expensive, contrary to sometimes is said. We can have gradual improvements with very few resources, but we need a constant commitment to do so. and this is probably the most efficient way to solve or to help the people who is living there today, not the future, not in 20 years time. And I think that this is the kind of support that we need, and I think that it's in that sense all you as a coalition and with the support of the Secretary General, UN Women and UN Habitat, I think that we will be ready to continue in this effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Close. Unfortunately,
I need to leave.
if he needs to leave. I initially was told he was going to Columbia, but then I found it was Columbia University, so it's not that. But nonetheless, he has to leave, so thank you again very much for
Thank you.
coming.
Have a good work. Thank you.
So following on that, and I think again, Dr. Close really kind of linked together all the issues of urbanization, young women, young men, how it works. What we have next is really exciting research that we've done, working initially with the Norwegian Youth Council and Tune Vesterhus, who was there at the time, and then she continued on with the University of Oslo to work on a research report that we put together. We have them here. There wasn't enough copies. You noticed they're photocopy, but if you write your name down, we promise we'll send you either a hard copy and or a PDF when it does get published. But we really felt that this was an exciting time to put this forward. Just again, following up from the SDGs visit, following up on the great work. So I'd like to pass it over to Tune as she will present the research she's undertaken.
Okay, maybe I can move up there so I can
Might you sit here and
online. Yeah,
I'll do the speaking. Maybe you know.
thanks. So then you can hear me as well. Okay. Hi everyone, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Tone. I'm from Norway, from the University of Oslo, and I've done the research and written the report that you have in a kind of finished copy here today, but it will be officially published in not too long. So as Doug said, I'm a human geographer, and a couple of years ago I was with the Youth and Livelihoods Unit in UN Habitat. And while I was there, I wrote two smaller reports about youth and public space in Mathari. And I was really amazed by the agency and by the political influence and the persistence that the youth in Mathari had. So when I went back to Oslo after having been in Nairobi for a few months and started working on my thesis with UN Habitat, it was very clear to me that I had to go deeper into this theme when I was due to produce this thesis. So today I had the pleasure of trying to sum those 2 years of research up in 15 minutes, so please bear with me on that, and do please grab a copy of the report so you can see what lies behind the short summary that you will get today. So I'll start by giving you some background about the case that has been researched, and then I'll present the research questions and the main findings after that. So, as you already saw, you've been kind of introduced to Malango Kuba already, which is the neighborhood in Mathari that I've been researching. And in Mathari, as shown by both the video and PLOS, it's predominantly young and very poor population. Over 40% of the population there is under the age of 25, and an average household has less than $82 to live on in 1 month. And the youth groups there, as you saw, has really pushed for positive change. They have two really good public spaces in a very small area. The slum soccer field, as you see here, and the youth center, which was also on the video. And they've also pushed for positive change through creating employment opportunities for youth that are also creating a positive impact for the rest of the community, such as the waste management program and also security patrols that that is used to improve the safety in the community. Yeah, you can, next one. So a few themes emerged when designing this study. So the claiming and use of public space had obviously been at the center of the developments in Mlango Kubwa, but it kind of remained unclear what specific role public space had played for youth. So the overall research question then aims at clarifying this aspect. So whether public spaces can actually improve the lives of young people in Mlango Kubwa. And seeing as this is quite a broad question, I chose to focus the sub-themes in two specific directions. So the first sub-question relates to the potential for increased quality of life. And I examine this question both through the improvements that have already been made and what is identified as potential future improvements through these public spaces. And the other sub-research question aims at uncovering whether public spaces can increase the political influence of young people in Mlango Kubwa. And in this regard, I analyze how the public spaces in the village are produced by sort of a symbiosis of informal and formal politics, and how this production of public space again creates outcomes for the political status of youth, both within the community and externally. So my research is qualitative, and most of the and I've conducted in-depth interviews with 15 youth from the area, both female and male, and also 3 UN Habitat officials and 1 central politician. So that's my main empirical data. So to go to the first sub-question regarding quality of life. So to find out whether quality of life could be improved through these public spaces, I had to identify the current obstacles for youth in the village. And through the interviews, I identified 4 main challenges that youth perceive to be standing in the way of their well-being. So the main challenges that were identified was lack of education, unemployment, substance abuse, and engaging in and being exposed to crime. So the first main finding of the thesis is that public spaces can and do improve the quality of life of young people in Mlango Kubwa. So based on the empirical data, I identified 2 main ways that public space can improve the quality of life for youth. On the one hand, you have what I've labeled root cause solutions. The public spaces work proactively as platforms to create employment and education opportunities. And the reason for why they're labeled root cause solutions is that they go to the core cause of the issue, such as, for instance, unemployment causing crime. I find that the opportunities that are created, specifically within employment, is, for instance, government employment schemes that are scarce and very attractive to have located in your community, obviously, because they create employment for young people, and they're located in this specific neighborhood because there is a youth hall there. Because they need somewhere to administrate it, and in this sense, the youth group that run the social hall are in a position to secure jobs for themselves and for the youth in their community. I also find that the public spaces are used to create youth-led or youth-created sustainable solutions for employment, such as the waste management program that you've heard about. And it's sustainable because the households pay a small fee for the youth to pick up the garbage. In terms of education, I also find that public space can enhance education, most notably non-formal education. The space is used for ICT training, it's used for classes on sexual health, different forms of cultural expressions, and so on. But I also find that it's used to enhance formal education through being a space that is used for homework, which is so basic, but most youth in Langakuba don't have that space in their own home. So having a place to do their homework actually does enhance their formal education as well. You can stay there for now. Thanks. On the other hand, so on the one hand you have the root cause solutions that kind of really deals with the real problem. But on the other hand you have the safe haven solutions that work reactively to prevent unwanted externalities through functioning as a safe space for those who use it. So they're labeled safe haven solutions because they focus on regulating the space and kind of blocking out the unwanted externalities instead of actually dealing with the core cause of the issue. So it doesn't really deal with the real cause of the issue compared to root cause solutions. So I guess the main takeaway from this finding is that if you involve youth in the planning, production and administration of public spaces, it can trigger the creation of root cause solutions, and that actually leads to real change and not only safe haven solutions. Next, please. So the other path for analyzing the overall research question was to explore the political aspects of youth's. I made it really difficult for myself here, but how youth use public space. So my aim was to understand whether youth through public space could increase their political influence and subsequently widen their use of their democratic citizenship. So I did a comprehensive analysis of how the public spaces are produced. I will not go into that now because that's an entire mapping of actors and where they're placed, but you can read that in the report. But I have a few main takeaways from that analysis as well. The first point is that the youth groups in Langakuba use the formal political system to their advantage through establishing lasting relationships. They nurture their relationships, they know how to maintain the relationships to make it worthwhile for both parties over time. And that's not only towards the politicians, but also NGOs and towards the UN system. And at the same time, while they do that, they also manifest their position as someone to be counted on within the community. And again, their status within the community is strengthened by the positive changes that they make for the community and all its inhabitants. And this kind of makes a reinforcing situation where their external status and their internal status is reinforcing how their status is within the community. So it gives young people and in this community an immense influence on how public space is produced, and also a position to create positive developments for their entire communities. And in this sense, the public spaces, as we saw in the video as well, it's used extensively for political events, and it's used as a platform, and it hence becomes their bastions of conveying politics. Okay, we can go to the next slide, Doug. Okay, so I stress that youth needs to be seen as a transitional phase rather than a set age span. When transforming from child to adult, there's normally a kind of a period of waiting because you go from the private realm of your family, of your parents, and into the public sphere where youth set their identities and explore their prospects. And if the goal and outcome for most youth is to move back into the private realm where you have your own family, where you set your livelihoods on your own premises. And whether or not this transition back into your own private realm is a success relies on many factors that decides whether you kind of manage to transition back. So in the conclusion of the thesis, I illustrate how this transition can occur in spatial terms. So in addition to private space and public space, I identify a third space, institutional political space. So I argue that the organized youth, the youth that are members of youth groups in Malango Kuba, have the ability to access a sort of elevated political space through their use of public space. And they employ that opportunity to the fullest. So their extended access to public space kind of functions as a springboard to access an elevated level of the public, and it's represented by the institutional political system. While their public spaces provide opportunities such as employment and education, institutional political space, the top of the pyramid, give them the tools to further increase their opportunities in public space. So this provides some of the youth in Malango Kuba with a mobility which is higher than you see by most slum dwellers. And I argue that when youth are able to access this space, transitioning to adulthood becomes a lot less of an obstacle than for most youth in marginalized informal settlements. So let me just finish on this note. So I think that my research findings is a testament to the capabilities of young people, and by including youth in governance and planning, we can create public spaces that facilitate for solving issues that stand in the way of good life quality. And obviously there are structural injustices that are standing in the way of many improvements, and this could not only be the only thing we do, but by doing this one thing, I think that it is possible to accelerate positive change. And could I just read a quote from the report as a last note? It's one of my foremans said this, and it's the last thing that is written in the thesis. I thought it was a good note on the situation in Madari. Let's see. It's messy. I always say that Nairobi is messy. It's messy, noisy, and has fumes all over. But I always tell the youth that out of all this mess, we have some gold. Crime is not the answer. Youth is our gold. Out of the fumes, the garbage, the blocked drainages, there is some gold. Thank you.
Thank you, too. We'll leave up the links. Now, it might look like youth space, public space, whatever, but actually that's an underline. So unless you want to click on the screen up here, you won't get to it. So, but these are the three different reports. The bottom one is the report that Tune just has launched. It's a tome. It's huge. So definitely download it. But then there's two other reports that Tune was also key to writing, as was Isaac Musa. Again, we pay tribute to him, and I'm really sorry that he was not able to make it. And I can also send you the videos too that were sent, because I think they're great. So